Hey, this is Teddy,
And this is Maya,
and welcome to the Everyday I Do podcast.
where I do is more than one day. Forgot what I was going to say.
We got it. Awesome. So we're excited to be here again with you today, and we just thank you all for participating, listening in on this. So today we're going to be talking about a subject. It's being equally yoked in your marriage, and the phrase "equally yoked" itself comes from 2 Corinthians 6:14. And it says, "Do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? And what communication has light with darkness?" So when we talk about being yoked, babe, do you want to talk about a little bit about what it means to be what a yoke is?
Okay, so let's talk about what a yoke is. It's actually something you use with animals, and I'm not a farmer. I've never put a yoke on an animal, but we read about it. So a yoke is a wooden harness that harnesses two animals together. So if two oxen are going to plow a field, you would harness them together with a yoke and it would make them equal. So they would go the same speed, they would go the same direction, and they would be doing the same thing at the same time. So it was very important that the two animals were in agreement when they were yoked together because they had one singular mission.
Yes. And what happens if they're not equally yoked?
If they're say they're a different size, they're a different temperament, or they one's bigger or smaller than the other, they can't walk in step. The plow would start to veer off course. If one was, say, stronger than the other, it would pull it in the wrong direction. Or if one was smaller than the other, it might not be able to keep up. And so it would make for uneven plowing.
Absolutely. So spiritually, what does this look like? Being yoked means being joined together in purpose and in direction and in effort, and especially in marriage. You can also throw business and close partnerships in there, but we're going to be talking about marriage specifically.
In marriage and what that looks like.
So when you're dating, it's important to look at the person that you're dating if you're dating for marriage.
Yes.
And look to see if this person has the same values as you do.
Yeah, I mean, we have a 20-year-old daughter who's of dating age, and obviously she wants to get married someday, and she, there's always guys interested in her, and she's actually very, very picky. Very, very picky. And I think that's good because she's not just looking at someone's looks. She's not just looking at, what kind of job they're going to have. There's a lot more to who you choose to spend your whole life with.
Yeah.
It is a huge decision, not to be taken lightly.
That's for dang sure. And so if you're a spiritual person, you're following after Jesus yourself, you don't want to be looking for someone who's not. They call that missionary dating.
Yeah.
And do you know the percentage of that works? 0%.
I was like, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. I don't know that statistic for sure, but I know that it is very low. Absolutely. So it's important that you partner with somebody who is going to be of your same of the same yoke.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking back to when we were dating, and we definitely knew we were both believers, and we did talk a lot in our dating life about money, about family. We talked about kids pretty early on, that we wanted kids, and it's not like we talked about parenting because we had no idea, but in dating we learned enough about each other to know that we were compatible in that way, like spiritually compatible, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that I mean, I knew what the Bible said about unequally yoked. I wasn't, I wanted to marry someone who was a believer. And so I think just looking back, like, that was important to both of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't looking at all down to, but I wasn't looking outside of my faith, for one thing.
Right.
But outside of even any faith.
Right.
I knew that if I was going to get married, that it was going to be because she was a believer and had the same kind of values that I did.
Yes, exactly.
So it's important that you're yoked because spiritually, when two people are not spiritually aligned, one following Christ and the other not, it creates a conflict of priorities and values.
And this is very valuable information, for one, because maybe you got married and neither of you were believers, and maybe someone became a believer in that time, and then now you're unequally yoked. That obviously is going to create conflict. It did in my own house.
Yeah. Or what if one of you is a Christian and the other one of you is a Catholic?
Yeah.
There's going to be some,
or a Mormon,
or something else.
Yeah.
The list can go on, but we've seen those kind of relationships in our years of marriage ministry. We've seen where people are unequally yoked spiritually,
Yeah.
and it causes some problems like faith. Because it influences your faith, because how do you make decisions in faith for your family, for your marriage? One of you wants to go to church on Saturday, the other one has to go to church on Sunday. I always find it interesting, especially when a Christian marries somebody of the Jewish faith.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Because there's such different beliefs.
absolutely, because Jews don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah,
Right.
for one, and Christians believe that he is the Messiah. And so there's going to be
Jews don't believe in the New Testament.
Exactly.
That's a big good difference.
And then when we see when they have children,
Yeah.
you have one pulling their children to Christian church and then the other one taking them to synagogue, or even if they're another faith, to
Well, we see that right now with some friends of ours where
Absolutely.
she's a Christian and he's a Mormon, and it actually became a bigger divide when they had kids,
Yeah.
because then you're like, you think, oh, we can work this out. But when it actually comes to it and what that means, it's not as easy as it sounds.
It really isn't. Now, I do want to put a preface here, that when we're talking about this, if you happen to be married to somebody you're unequally yoked with your spouse, we're not here to condemn that.
Or to say you should divorce or
Absolutely
split up
not.
or anything.
We believe that God can use your marriage in the way that God intended. And so that's why we're talking about this. We want people to be spiritually yoked. So we're not here to throw mud at anybody. We just want everybody to understand what it means to have a godly marriage. So another thing about being unequally yoked is how you handle money, how you handle forgiveness, or how you handle conflict.
Well, and the thing is, as a believer, we always go to the Bible. Like, that is our everything. It's our instruction manual for life. And so if we're going to have an issue about, say, disciplining kids, we're going to go to the Bible, and we're going to let the Bible tell us
Yes.
what to do. So if we're unequally yoked and I want to go to the Bible, but you believe nothing or something else, that's where that conflict rises up.
Yeah. And so it goes into raising children, and also what we believe about the purpose, our purpose as believers, and even eternity.
Mm-hmm.
There's some religions that believe that you're annihilated once you die. And then there are some that believe, of course, like we believe as Christians, that we go into heaven to spend eternity with the Father. And so I'll step back and say, in marriage, and we've talked about this in this podcast, is that the husband is to be the spiritual leader of the family. So what happens if a wife is a Christian, her husband is of another faith, and he tries to lead and she can't follow?
Right.
I mean, ultimately, she needs to be obedient to God above all.
Right.
And she needs to come under the protection of her husband.
And I think in that there's a big responsibility on that wife. The Bible's very clear about that. That if her husband is of another faith or not of any faith at all, her life is the testimony, and how she treats him, how she acts towards him. There's a verse in 1 Peter 3. It's some of my favorite portions of scripture. But it talks about how she doesn't use outward beauty or fancy hairstyles. She should clothe herself. So it's 1 Peter 3:4. It says, you should clothe yourself instead with the beauty that comes from within, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious to God. And later on, it talks about how that will win her husband over. Like, her attitude can. So I think if a woman's in that position, there's that calling to be just not nagging or not
Yep.
berating him for his belief or unbelief,
Yeah.
whatever, but just to be prayerful and to be encouraging and show him what Jesus looks like.
Yeah, well said. So I'm going to read from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 12 through 16. That talks about this. So it says, if a fellow believer has a wife who is not a believer and she is willing to continue living with him, he must not leave her. And if a believing woman has a husband who's not a believer and he is willing to continue living with her, she must not leave him. For the believing wife brings holiness to her marriage, and the believing husband brings holiness to his marriage. Otherwise, your children would not be holy, but now they are holy. But if the husband or wife who isn't a believer insists on leaving, let them go. In such cases, the believing husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, for God has called you to live in peace. Don't you wives realize that your husbands might be saved because of you? And don't you husbands realize that your wives might be saved because of you? This is exactly what you were just talking about. I mean, it's like you read the Bible a few times.
It's like I've read my Bible before. But yes, absolutely. Like, this is God's instruction manual for someone who is in a marriage and you're unequally yoked. And I love this because it's saying you're not beyond repair. Your marriage is not beyond repair. It doesn't mean like you're just supposed to live in this state of limbo your entire marriage, that there is hope for you.
So how do you avoid spiritual compromise? So an unequal yoke can lead one partner to compromise their faith to maintain peace or connection with their spouse. For example, one may feel pressure to downplay prayer or church involvement or biblical principles. But what happens over time? That it can weaken that believer's spiritual life and joy.
This is why we talk to our daughter about who you marry. It's very important because who you marry should propel you towards God, not pull you away from God. And if you marry someone that you're unequally yoked with, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to pull them, like you were saying, missionary dating. You're not going to pull them towards God. What's going to happen is they're going to pull you away from God. And that there's so much danger in that.
So dangerous. So dangerous. So what does it look like when two believers do get married and then for whatever reason, one of the spouses just starts falling away?
Yeah.
And it's not that they stop believing in God, is that they're just not as the word what's the word?
They're not pursuing him.
Exactly. They're not pursuing him the way that the other one is.
So I grew up in a house like this. My parents were not saved when they got married. My mom got saved first. My dad got saved later. And my mom grew up in a Christian home. My dad did not. And so all of that put together was not a good combination. Yet it worked for a while. And my dad was involved in church, and through growing up, we attended church regularly. But he did start pulling away, and he did start, going backwards. In the 80s, they called it backsliding. And I remember that term. But he started going backwards. He stopped going to church. He started doing things that we had never done, as a family. And so, I think that, yeah, it was very harmful to us kids. It was very confusing for us. And so I think, I can't go back and fix what happened, but I lived through it, so I have experience. And I guess that's why I'm such a proponent of being equally yoked and of, I knew that I wanted to marry someone who had the same beliefs that I did because I didn't want to live that kind of life.
Yeah. And you did. So it's God's desire to not limit relationships, but to protect your spiritual growth and the health of the relationship itself.
Yeah, he wants us to have a strong, healthy relationship. And when you do things God's way, you get a strong, healthy relationship.
Absolutely. So it's important. And so we've talked about this, that men should be, like I said earlier, that men should be the spiritual head of the household. And it's not to lord over anybody, but it's to, be an influence to their wives and their children. So there is some statistics, and I actually looked this up earlier today, so I know that these statistics are fresh. So talking about going to church, say that two people get married that are unbelievers, and one of them just starts going to church. If it's the mother, that's the first to become involved, there's about a 17% chance that the entire household will follow. And that's kind of low.
That's pretty low.
And so and it shows the influence, even though the mother has influence,
Right.
but still, when it comes to spiritual things,
Yes.
it's, she doesn't have that much of the influence. So according to this, but it's even more profound effect is that when the father is the first of the household to convert or to start going to church, some findings show 93% chance of the entire family will follow.
Amazing.
Compared to only the 17%. I mean, that shows how heavy it is for husbands, for fathers, to be the spiritual head of the household. If you go to church, there's a 93% chance that your wife and children will follow.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I can't. It's
astounding.
It is very astounding. And so that's what we just want to encourage. If you're a husband out there whose wife is unbelieving, just start going to church.
Yes.
Start praying, even if it's by yourself for a while. Get involved in church.
Yep.
If she starts being jealous of your time, which she has every right to be, as she's your wife, then tell her, maybe just join with me in
Invite
this.
her. Maybe she's just waiting for an invitation.
Absolutely. And it's important, and I know that we've said this too, that we need to fight for our families. Men, you need to fight for your wives. I'm just like Christ died for the church. You need to do the same thing for your wife. Give your all to ensure that she herself is on her way to heaven.
Yeah.
Make sure that your kids are on their way to heaven too.
Yeah. So the next thing that we see is that we want to partner with each other with purpose. So God designed marriage and close relationships to be a team for his glory. We've talked about this before with like one can put 1,000 to flight, two can put 10,000 to flight, that there's so much power in a team. And when you have a built-in team with your spouse, you have someone who's going to always be there to encourage you, always be there to serve each other or serve side by side with in the ministry. And you can grow in faith together. And those are things that you and I have done throughout our years of marriage. We have definitely encouraged each other because both of us have been in places where we're feeling discouraged or down.
Yeah.
And you always have someone there to be your cheerleader and be like, this is what the word says, and pray for each other.
So tell me what you were talking about earlier.
Yes. So I was at Bible study this morning and we were talking about wives' roles in family. And this word came up. It's a Hebrew word and it's spelled Ezer, Ezer. And what it actually means, it's the word that God uses when he first created Eve for Adam. He used the word helper or helpmeet, and it actually means ally. So like somebody that you're an ally with. And it's actually one of the most misunderstood words in the Bible because a lot of people think that God would use the word meaning the woman was going to come alongside of her husband to take care of him or to do things for him. And that's not what it means at all. It's actually, the word is actually used more about God, the Father himself, than anyone else. And it means he's our helper in a time of trouble. He's the one that is there no matter what, to uplift, to encourage, to support. And that's what he's calling us wives to be a very purposeful support of our husband. Because you know what, ladies? Our husbands need to be encouraged from time to time. They get down, and maybe men don't always let you in on what they're feeling, or because maybe they're trying to protect you because they don't want you to feel the weight of what they're feeling. But it doesn't mean they're not feeling it. And so that's even if we don't know for sure, we can always pray for our husband. We can encourage him with words of affirmation, with verses in scripture. And yeah, that's a huge weight of responsibility as women.
Absolutely. And men, you have the same responsibility for your wives too. Mm-hmm. It's not, I mean, you need to help your wife out, to help her, encourage her, because she goes through things just as much as you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes if not more, there's women and men are not just different mentally, but also physically.
Yeah.
So there's physical and mental and spiritual battles that we each go through.
Well, and I think that women are more vocal about it.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it might seem like she's complaining or she's always talking about her feelings but I think we both have those feelings. Men just aren't as vocal. So sometimes you think, oh, he's fine, but he's not. Like he's a human being with feelings and emotion. They're just in his boxes.
Yeah. I'm in my nothing box. So when both partners are equally yoked, they can pray together in unity, and that's something that we highly, highly recommend is praying together.
If you could do this one thing, guess what? It's free.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot of time.
Yep.
You can do it anywhere, anytime.
Yep.
Pray together.
Yeah.
It is so vitally important. Sometimes I think about all the time we wasted not doing it. It makes me sad, honestly.
Yeah.
Like we could have been praying together all the time. But start today. If you have not been praying with your spouse, start today.
Yeah. Another thing that you'll be able to do is seek God's will together. We've been seeking God's will for some big things, but so seek God's will for whatever is important in your marriage right now.
And I think this actually, we've talked about this, but it comes back to communication, because sometimes when we're praying together, we're communicating with each other as well as with God, and we're letting each other into what we're thinking. Yes, we're talking to God, but we're also letting our spouse into what we're thinking about, what's concerning us, and maybe not even, we don't even realize we're doing it until we pray. And then you're like, oh, I've been thinking about that too. Or I didn't know that was on your heart. And it's a way to open up communication.
Yeah. And then also allows you to support each other through trials. Yeah. If I'm going through a trial, who is the best person outside of God for me to lean on?
How many times have you come to me with something you're struggling with, and something maybe you've been struggling with and you didn't want to verbalize it, or you, for whatever
reason,
but once you do,
it takes a weight off.
It does. Every time it's like I can physically see this release come off of you every time. So men, listen to my voice. Talk to your wives, let them in, because it will relieve some of that stress and pressure you are holding on to.
Totally. And then also you'll be able to build your family rooted in faith. I mean, go to church together, pray together, it's worship together. It just changes the whole dynamic of your family.
Yeah.
It changes. I mean, when people come to our house, they always say, I just feel so much peace here.
That's so funny that you said that, because today at Bible study, we were talking about the atmosphere of our home. And one of the ladies was saying like something about her house. And Savannah was like, whenever my friends come, they're like, it's so peaceful in your house. And she's like, it feels a little chaotic, but it's not just like what's going on. It's just the atmosphere of our home is peaceful, and people can tangibly feel it.
Yeah, totally. And people, like when they come, they sit down and they feel like they can fall asleep.
I know.
I've heard a lot of
curl up on the couch.
Yeah, they're like, your house is so peaceful. I could just totally pass out right now. It's just an amazing thing. So being equally yoked is important because it ensures spiritual unity, and it shares values and direction. It also is protection from compromise, and it strengthens your bond for God's purpose. It's not about superiority, and it's not about judgment like we were talking about a little bit ago. It's about wisdom and alignment with God's design for a thriving relationship.
Yeah.
If you want your marriage to thrive, it's so important that you both become equally yoked. I mean, you might have years ahead of spiritual maturity over your spouse, but they can get there.
Yeah.
And it takes prayer.
I was going to say, I think both, because I think praying, like, you're not going to change them just by nagging them or bugging them or constantly saying, well, if you only did this, that's not going to help anything. But I'm telling you, prayer can change everything. And so I think praying for your spouse, number one, hands down, do that. You need it.
Absolutely. And when you pray, expect God to actually expect changes to happen.
And not just in them and you.
Yeah.
Like he's going to change you too.
I mean, we've seen families where the wife and the kids might be going to church, and the husband is like, don't even invite me.
Yeah.
And so they prayed, they prayed and they prayed and they prayed. And he finally accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior. And now he's been serving Jesus for years now.
Yeah.
I remember when the kids were not even in high school yet, but now they're grown and married. That's how long he's been serving after God. Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen that time and time again, just in couples where the husband was just not into it, and through prayer and consistency and love, he does. And so your marriage is not without hope at all. At all.
And we're here to encourage you.
Yeah.
Keep praying. Keep believing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for being here with us on this episode. Again, if you have any questions or any prayers or anything else that you'd like to communicate to us, feel free to email us at everydayidopod@gmail.com.
Yeah. See you all next time.
Thank you all.